Hi, my name's Andrew Huang. I'm a filmmaker and artist based in Los Angeles, and I'm going to talk to you about the making of Björk Digital. Björk Digital began as a conversation between me and her in 2013. We had just finished making the music video for Mutual Core for her last album, Biophilia, and that was my first project with Björk back in 2012. And in 2013, Björk approached me and said that she was going to be doing a retrospective of her work at the Museum of Modern Art in New York, and was also embarking on her next studio album called Volnakira. And she needed a director to partner with her to create visuals for the album and to create a centerpiece for the new MoMA exhibition. And that project ended up being Black Lake, which was really a heartbreak song, because it was an account of her separation from her longtime partner Matthew Barney. And so Black Lake was going to be the beginning of our journey together. Black Lake was basically almost like an opera. It was a very long scrolling song, and we with strings, and it had various the song was a traveling song, and we needed to reflect the journey that Björk was making. We needed to reflect the journey that Björk was embarking on in this heartbreak narrative. And so, to start Black Lake, I began my normal process, which is drawing. I always start with my sketchbook, and I began illustrating, what this film might look like and who this character was for Björk, and also beginning to outline what the visuals are for this journey. And so I drew this image of this woman being flayed, and her being really torn apart. I mean, Björk was absolutely devastated at this point in her life, and it was important to create a film that showed that authentically. And so I began once I started doing illustrations, I also began doing concept art, which you can see here. And, it was really trying to figure out how to integrate Björk's performance with the Icelandic landscape, because this album was very much a coming home album for her as well. Up until this time, she hadn't made an album that was directly inspired by Iceland for a while, and so this film was very much about Björk returning home to her homeland, and Black Lake was really going to be this heartbreak opera set against the landscape. The costume designer for Black Lake was Iris van Herpen, an amazing designer from the Netherlands, and Iris is a longtime collaborator of Björk, and so Iris began designing a lava dress made out of copper wire that reflected actually perfectly the textures of the rock around the ravine where we were filming, and also took my drawings and created this beautiful cape, again this almost like out of this flayed material, that made a very fragile, delicate but beautiful looking garment for her to wear at the end of the film. And so this really was a story about Björk kind of dying and being reborn, and so that the clothing reflected that. And this really was the beginning of our whole journey together. And so to begin shooting Black Lake, we began rehearsing in Reykjavik with our choreographer Erna Omarsdóttir, and it really was just Erna, me, and Björk trying to find the work through performance. And really, Black Lake just became, this performance piece out in the wilderness, I think we knew at the time that we wanted to create something expansive for this film beyond just the performance that she was giving that would live in the museum, and so, we also knew that we wanted to create an experience that would immerse the audience. So, while we were shooting Björk in the ravine and in the caves in Iceland, I also brought a team with me to scan the landscapes that we were shooting in to create digital photogrammetry scans of each of the environments, so that we had each of these landscapes to use both as for CG effects in the film, but also beyond, which I'll explain later. These digital scans of the Icelandic environment became very crucial for the rest of our work on Björk Digital. From the beginning of the creation of Black Lake, we knew that we wanted to create an immersive experience for the museum and for the exhibition at MoMA. We had first hoped to create a 360-degree spherical film that would live in a dome and be projected immersively in the exhibition. And you can see here, these are early designs for what that dome could have looked like at the exhibition. These were designed by local architects at the Living in New York. And these designs, unfortunately, were never realized. But as you can see, that these exemplify the ways in which me and Björk were thinking about how to create an immersive experience, with this album, where it's not just traditional film, but something more than that. And so Black Lake, in a way, was perfect. I'm really glad that we did Black Lake as a film for the first piece, because in a way it was almost like the death of an old medium and the birth of a new one. And so you can see here, this is a little sketch actually that Björk did, while we were sitting together, and she had wanted to somehow for her audience, she wanted someone to be able to experience immersively how she writes music and her internal experience of the song. And so you can see, again, we had these kind of prototype versions and conversations of what VR would look like. Filming Black Lake eventually led to more experimentation in the creation of this virtual experience. So as you can see here, these are early designs that I was doing to try and create a virtual companion to Black Lake, or a virtual experience where you could go inside, almost like the tombstone of who Björk was, and emerge on the other side of Björk as a reborn person. And so we had the idea early on of doing some sort of 360-degree GoPro capture, maybe something attached to her. But what the piece eventually became was our first VR piece, which was for Stonemilker. We shot using a DIY GoPro rig, 3D printed and designed by Chris Milk's company, VerseWorks. And so this really was a prototype, and I had the idea that if this is about Björk's personal life, then we should shoot this film, then we should shoot the film where she wrote the song. So we shot Björk right on the tide pools by a lighthouse where she had written the song, and placed the VR camera there so that she could perform in total privacy. And really it became a great performance tool for her for that reason. And also ended up creating a very intimate experience for viewers experiencing Stonemilker for the first time. We premiered Stonemilker at MoMA PS1 in New York, and it really actually became a highlight of the retrospective because it was a brand new piece, and it was one of the first opportunities for us to present VR in an exhibition format. And so really the journey from Black Lake to Stonemilker was our first evolution of what Björk Digital would become. Björk Digital is really an ongoing experiment of evolutionary practice of trying to figure out how to create an intimate and immersive experience for people through Björk's music and through the visuals. I guess concurrently with the creation of Stonemilker, I also began playing with trying to find the imagery and the visual language for the album, using the photogrammetry scans that we had captured during Black Lake, and starting to create almost like totems of Björk as this woman splayed over the landscape. So you can see this image where Björk is reclining on the rock. This, again, I began using the actual digital scans of the rocks to create sculptures of Björk as this totem or this tarot card. You can see ultimately these sculptures of Björk became the album sleeve for Volnicura, and also became what will be the landing page when you first experience Björk Digital. You arrive on a moss plane, which we had scanned, and it is through the Björk sculpture
that we enter all of the Björk VR pieces. So again, in a way, this has become what would begin as like a filmic opera. This has started to become more of a digital opera, where we're going through all the songs in this heartbreak journey through this virtual landscape that we had captured from that first work. As we were finishing Stone Milker and creating the visual language for the album, we also created a short film, which I call the Volnicura short film, or the Volnicura album film, which is really just a short, 2-minute film that features Björk, actually emerging out of this rock and sewing her heart back together. And in a way, this film became both, a flagship film for the album, but it also became a prototype for what would become the HTC Vive VR piece for family. So, by the time we were finishing Stone Milker, it became clear that in VR, the desire for someone to move around volitionally in a space was very important. That 360 video was step one, but we wanted to give VR goers the experience to actually move around and interact with a VR space. So Björk and I began setting out to create the VR film, the VR experience for family, which was created entirely in Unity, and was made with the help of developers Vince McKelvey and Peter Javidpour. And together we were able to take, again, the digital scans that we got from Black Lake and use them as digital set pieces for this journey, in which, again, the action for every video game, you want to create a mechanic or an action that drives the entire game. And in this sense, the key action of this narrative is Björk sewing her chest back together, as you see in the film. And so we wanted to be able to create an experience for family where you are sewing your chest back together as Björk sings to you, and you follow Björk on this journey through this lava cave which is the same lava cave where we shot Black Lake. And as we travel through that cave, we are riding in one of the beautiful ribbon headdresses that James Merry made. So we recreated that in CG, and that headset becomes that sculpture that James made becomes kind of like a magic carpet that we can ride in on this heartbreak journey. And as we travel through that cave, we discover Björk's tombstone, and it's at the discovery of that tombstone that allows us to rise up onto the sulfuric moss plain, where we see again that tombstone melt into wax, and we see Björk actually emerge out of that tombstone as almost like this deity made out of light. So, in this sense, Björk is, this is a story about death and resurrection, about heartbreak and recovery and healing. And so once Björk rises out of that tombstone, she is this, numinous giant that actually walks through the viewer. And so it's that precise moment when Björk, as this deity, walks through the viewer, is this moment of contact that I think is really an emotional part of this experience, and it creates the climax of the piece. And I was really happy to hear that people who had experienced this particular piece, were brought to tears because it was a moment of this emotional connection. So I think in a way, this was a real success of this piece, is this moment of contact. And, it was a great opportunity to play with scale and to play with interactivity that I had never done before. These are images of the treatment for family. I usually start by creating, again, concept art for the piece before we go into production. And as you can see, this functions as like a storyboard for the journey that we make through family, where we go through the cave, ascend, and Björk rises out of this tombstone as this deity. And you can see also in this treatment, the actual mechanics that we designed to have these hands constantly sewing the wound back together, this iconic wound that became the image of the album. For the creation of Family, I was really excited to partner with developers Vince McKelvey and Peter Javidpour. These are images of Vince's work. He is just an amazing, interactive artist, and he's someone that I had known in the community, and someone that really brought so much originality to this piece, which I think was important to do in a really lean way, because as a game we had to figure out how to do this cleverly with a small team and create shaders and textures that would feel futuristic and celestial, but also be interactive and play well in a game environment. And Peter Javidpour is just a really talented developer who knew Vince and came on board to really put this together. And so I was really honored to work with game designers who just really educated me on what it's like to work in a totally interactive, non-linear medium. Family, in a way, was the culmination of all this work that Björk and I had done together, from Mutual Core to Black Lake through Stonemilker, and finding the visual language of this album. And I created additional visual art to accompany Family, like these posters, which became banner artwork for the Björk Digital experience. And this avatar that plays a central role in Family became also a motion capture avatar that Björk could use to interface with audiences. And I think that the use of digital avatars and digital proxies to talk about really delicate, intimate subject matter was a really powerful tool for Björk, so that she could, ultimately as an introvert, to talk to her audiences about very intimate material, but still respect the boundary between artist and viewer. And so I think that the avatar was a great tool for her, and also became sort of like an iconic tarot card for this exhibition. And it was the creation of Black Lake, Stonemilker, Family, that were I think we're just it was a really humbling journey for me to be on, and was an evolutionary process. And I was excited to see that other brilliant directors like Jesse Kanda and Warren and Nick, and were other creators that added to this heartbreak journey. And I'm just happy to be part of an exhibition that was pioneering and allowed a polymath like Björk to continue to evolve and share really personal material, really emotionally moving material with her audiences, but in this totally innovative, fresh way. The first time that we were able to demo Björk Digital in other cities, and again, each time we did Björk Digital in a new city, it was always a new experience. We always made certain mistakes, or found certain ways of improving the next time we showed the work, because it's very difficult to put on a VR exhibition where you have to create a large amount of headsets for audiences and create a path of flow so that the audience experiences each work linearly in a way that tells a story. So I think that Björk Digital was an experiment in storytelling and in experience creation for people. And so every time we did Björk Digital, it was a new experience, and it was always a little scary for me, because there's never a guarantee that all the machines are going to work correctly, or that the gameplay is going to go smoothly, or that all the shaders that we worked on are going to show in the piece. So in a way, it's there's a lot to surrender in this process of experimentation, but I think that's precisely what made it so rewarding. This journey with Björk Digital, Björk and I did our final piece together. In 2017, we made the music video for The Gate from her album Utopia. And in a way, Utopia is, it takes off. Utopia picks up where Volnicura left off, and The Gate is sort of a transitional piece between these two albums. So I was very honored and happy to make The Gate as, the culmination of Björk Digital and all this work that we had done together. In a way, it was like the concluding film, and I think it's our strongest work to date. And these last images here are stills from The Gate, and you can see it opens with the motif from Volnicura, that wound shape that forms into a portal in Björk's chest.
So The Gate really is, it's a piece I'm very proud of, and it, in a way, summarizes this long journey that we've been on together. So that concludes my talk for Björk Digital. Thank you very much for joining me, and I look forward to speaking with you and answering any questions you have.